Guru Nation, welcome back to another episode of Random Musings from the Clinical Trials Guru. We've got, it's so nice of a day today.
So the topic is SMOs and site networks, right? And they're relatively interchangeable, right? But there is some key differences between the two. And why a sponsor should consider networks, SMOs or site networks.
Yes.
It's to expedite the site selection process, right? Because there's a lot of wasted time and most likely funds associated with delays in getting the sites up and running. I think that's the primary benefit to sponsors or CROs if they're selecting the sites.
So the pros and cons of using site networks, basically, because there are some cons to everything, right?
Sure.
And why, but we're going to focus on the positives. Remember, these are people like trying to save money, right? They're not like a big sponsors.
Right.
They don't have their preferred CRO.
Right. Or preferred sites for that.
Or preferred sites, right? These are people maybe doing their first trial.
Right.
And maybe they're very idealistic in how trials should work. For example, I'm monitoring a study right now with one of these sponsors. I'm a contractor.
Mm-hmm.
And the sponsor created like this very idealistic study with a diary every day that it's for subjects to record that they took the dose.
Okay.
Right? And what it's causing is a lot of problems because patients are taking the dose, but they're not entering the data
including
in
the
diary.
This is very common with diaries.
But when you're counting the meds, the IP accountability, first of all, it gives the CRAs more work because now they have to confirm, okay, well, why does the e-diary show that the patients are not compliant?
Right.
So now you get all these queries. Maybe it's deviation, but then when you count the pills, you realize, okay, no, it's not. But you're still guessing, or you're assuming, okay, patient just forgot. But that question then becomes, is this a deviation? And when you have these new sponsors, they have these issues with the sites, and they don't really know how to go about it because they're more idealistic than they are practical because they've never done a study before. You can't blame them, but this is like just one example of 1,000 things that can go wrong in a study. And guess what? The FDA doesn't care about this.
Sure.
So it's how you design your study that's very important. We're not going to talk about that. But I think one of the things you can do is use experienced sites and rely on a site network. Mm-hmm. Because this way, if you have a problem, at least it's going to be the same problem. And this is where it's pro and a con. You're going to have the same problem basically across the board. As opposed to using different sites where one site will do it this way, another site will do it this way. Or what do you think about this?
Well, I would say that's definitely a problem. More than likely that's true with an SMO. That's going to be how it plays out.
Site management organization.
Right, but with a site network, that may or may not necessarily be true because, like with our site network, we're loosely affiliated. There is no overall controlling entity.
Start off, difference between an SMO and a site network. Maybe that's a good place to start.
So SMO, I'll start. You finish.
Yeah.
SMO is a organization of sites with a central power where they initiate everything, right? Whether it be getting the studies, negotiating the budget, whatever it might be, where they have processes in place that all the sites are going to follow, right? Or they just have a central location handling everything. That's for the most part how an SMO works. The site network, at least one as we kind of have set up, they're all individually owned, so they have no authority.
Individually owned and operated.
Right. So
I think that's the main difference because SMO gets involved in the operations.
Right.
So the idea is we're going to standardize operations. Well, with a site network, each site's responsible for their own operations. There may be an expectation among the group like, hey, you've got to meet certain metrics.
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
Or maybe not.
So, in my opinion, I think a site network is of more value to a sponsor because you're not going to have these repeated occurrences of problems throughout.
So the con that I was explaining the example
will not apply in a site network where the advantages can still apply. Like in our site network, where we can negotiate one budget, they've all agreed to this, that they'll all abide by the same budget. So it just needs to be done one time, and it can apply to all sites, right?
I got it. Yeah. Yes.
And that's one of the big slowdowns.
Yes. I think that's very important. Why should they consider a site network, even one like ours, maybe?
Again, because if costs are, they should be with any company, are concerned. If costs are a concern, this should expedite the process, which in turn saves money, saves time. Time is money, right? So, if you can cut down on the process of selecting sites of say like 3 months, then on top of that, you can cut down on the process of negotiating all the different budgets and contracts with all those individual sites by another 2-3 months. And you just say 6 months of time.
6 months of time, as opposed to, what about, so okay, and the alternative is doing
Individually going to all
one-on-one.
these sites,
Okay.
right? And not that you wouldn't necessarily do that, but right away you have a list of where you're going, right? Opposed to trying to
Procure.
get through all these feasibility questionnaires, find these sites initially, then go through the feasibility questionnaires and all of that. It saves time.
Now, usually you play devil's advocate. I will play it,
All right.
but I have some good things to add as well. So I'm this biotech guy listening. I'm like, Chris, that's great, but this is so important to us. It's our first study. Like, I'm personally going to each site
Mm-hmm.
to interview them
Sure.
because
that
that's
happens.
my job on the line.
Right.
So, like, I don't actually care necessarily about making it quicker. I'm gonna do it. I want quality.
Mm-hmm.
So why still then site network?
So hopefully there's an entity somewhere in there that can vet the sites initially, right? So or maybe you're not going to just take whatever they hand you, but
Mhm.
they can at least vet the sites and say, okay, these are our premium sites. You know, given all things considered,
Gotcha.
these are the ones you want to select.
Gotcha. And then using a organization like ours, DSCS, we actually have influence over the sites.
Correct.
And we can even tell this, I would tell this biotech manager, hey, if you have any problems during the study, I'm running this whole site network. So I have influence over these sites.
Yeah.
While I can't affect what they do, this site listens to me.
Right. So
And
running's
we
the
can-
wrong word to use there. You're not necessarily running them, but you do offer guidance.
Well, running the network, not running the sites,
Okay. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things. Another thing, which I definitely know biotechs don't know, especially doing their first study, even some of the big pharma don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Sites tend to put their best foot forward and put on their Easter Sunday clothes when site selection visits occur.
Oh, of course.
Okay,
Of
so
course.
you may go, if you're inexperienced, as a biotech manager looking for sites,
Sure.
feasibility manager, whatever you are.
Sure.
You go to sites, they're gonna know how to put their best foot forward. Maybe the PI is a key opinion leader,
Right.
so he or she looks great on the study.
Right.
Okay, but if you're not asking the right questions, or if they're not being honest with you
Mm-hmm.
about their numbers, you're gonna be fooled into giving the site a study.
Very likely.
Whereas, and this is especially true with the key opinion leaders, where they look perfect on paper, perfect. But then when the study gets started, and I know because I monitor some of these sites as a CRA, when the study gets going, they're so perfect of a PI that they get so many studies. You're not the only sponsor talking to them.
Right.
So now, what priority are you for them? You're low. I mean, if you're lucky, maybe they love your drug.
Right.
Maybe you're high, but even then, there's a shortage. Here's the secret in research. Coordinators do like 90% of the work.
Is that a secret?
Believe it or not, it's a secret to some of these people at sponsors. That's why we're doing this podcast.
So ivory towers have no clue.
It doesn't even have to be ivory tower, just somebody brand new.
True.
Or ivory towers. They have no
Inexperienced.
idea. You know, even CRAs that have been doing this for years, that have been monitoring, have no clue when they're monitoring, because we talk about they have their blinders on, so they're just trying to complete their reports.
Sure.
They have no clue until they want to become site owners, because one of the things we have a lot of people open sites, and a big growing segment of that are CRAs
Right.
that want to open their sites. So they have no idea that the coordinator is literally running the show. It's like a house of cards almost at every site.
Unless
From the academic institutions, I know because I monitor them now,
right.
to the small mom and pop, right? Most have good patient safety oversight.
Sure.
But when it comes to operations, which is what the FDA is looking at, they're looking at the data.
Mm-hmm.
It's a house of cards. The coordinator and maybe a few other helpers are doing the
Sure.
study, most of it. So then, with all this being said, why then a site network? Even more so, I think, especially a site network where you know the founders.
Right.
DS, I'm DS, you are CS.
You give them the secret away.
It would give it
Secret
away.
sauce.
The books are gone, so there's no more price. But like for this, especially for these biotechs, because what they're looking for oftentimes, like these small biotechs, are a CRO that can hold their hand throughout the process. Not only are we a CRO, we can do that for them too.
Sure.
But they don't even need a CRO. They can do it themselves.
Right.
And we'll help because we're not really involved officially with any of the sites. Again, like you said, they're all independently owned and operated.
Right.
But we run the network.
Right.
We run the site network.
Yep.
So if there's a problem, they come talk to us. And here's another secret that they're going to find out maybe the hard way. When they need something done from the site, these sites that looked good on paper, more often than not, are not going to get back to them. Why? Because 10,000 other people are asking them for the same thing,
Sure.
and they only have 2 coordinators.
Yep.
And guess what? Coordinators are humans. They get sick. They go out on maternity leave.
Or
I mean,
they're just busy.
life happens.
Sure.
Or they're busy, right? So I think it's critical, especially for these small sponsors, to have an alliance with a site. And we're unique in the sense that we can even do some CRO stuff for them.
Yep.
So that's one of the benefits, I think. Now, I'm not saying it's a miracle, like we're gonna, like there won't be any quality issues with the study because every study has quality issues pretty much with every site.
Sure. Or recruitment might have a speed bump or two. We can't really do much in that facet.
You're gonna have deviations. Almost
Right.
every site gets a deviation in a study, at least.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you need responsiveness from a site quickly.
Sure.
Another thing I see is regulatory. A lot of these sites, they're so busy that regulatory is kind of pushed to the back burner.
Yeah.
But when the FDA comes in, that's the first thing they look at.
Yeah.
Regulatory.
Supposed to be audit ready.
Right. And we even have a program for our sites in our network. It's the CRC Academy.
Right.
We teach if they're new research staff, we teach them how to be coordinators.
Right.
From our site network, it's one of the benefits of being in our network. We give
Right.
them a discount to be in the CRC Academy.
That's right.
Right, so we're training them in our process, then they implement that process internally. And then as far as recruitment is concerned, we hope to at least be honest with you when we're doing their feasibility surveys for them.
Right.
And they will confirm at the site selection visit their numbers because we don't tell our clients at the site selection visit to lie. Right?
Yeah.
Or the SIP for that matter. So what else? Site network. We have 50 in our network.
Well, it would depend on the study,
Mhm.
because it's all over all kinds of therapeutic areas.
They're
but-
not all appropriate for every study.
Correct.
Right.
And depending on what the study were for or is for, we could also access previous clients as well. Right.
Mm-hmm.
If a sponsor came to us and said, "Hey, I need 20 sites tomorrow or yesterday," depending on the indication, I'm sure we can do that for most indications. We're a little light oncology-wise. What do we have? Like maybe 5,
Yeah.
somewhere in that realm.
For our CRO, DOC is CRO, that's the only projects we have as a CRO.
Yeah, as a CRO.
Is oncology. But
Right.
for sites, we only have a few in our network.
Like 5.
But that's growing.
Right.
I actually just talked to an oncologist last week, another one. So
Right.
they're thinking about it.
Right.
Here's another benefit, though. We were talking about quality, right? And how regulatory is usually ignored by most sites until they know they're going to get an audit. And queries left open
Oh yeah.
until they know they're going to maybe get an audit by the sponsor.
Right.
And those audits cost sponsor money. You don't want to do that all the time.
Yep.
So having us here, again, we're not in charge of running these sites, but they're part of our network. We can put influence or pressure on the
Absolutely.
sites.
Yep.
Hey, Bob in Nebraska. I just got a call from the sponsor, and to be honest with you, they're like upset that your coordinator's not answering queries, doing regulatory, and we're not going to give you studies in the future if you do this because it makes us look bad.
Yep.
Can you please get this resolved?
Yep. Absolutely.
We can put that kind of pressure or influence.
That's the exact pressure we would put on.
Right. So that's a huge advantage, in my opinion, of using a site network. Instead of calling each site and telling them your problems, you call one of us or someone from our team, and we will definitely send that message to them, even if we have to get on a plane and do it ourselves.
And the person that we're going to be speaking with is the highest up on the food chain, typically.
Usually
it's either going to be the owner or the PI.
Owner or the PI, if that's not the same person.
Yeah.
Some of the disadvantages, again, don't really apply to site networks. They apply to SMOs.
Right.
Because SMOs use the same process, so then you're going to get the same errors at every site.
Yep.
And a site network, you're not necessarily going to get the same issues because we have no involvement in the study unless there's a problem. And the problem could be in recruitment. It could be in quality of data as far as entering queries, entering data. Entering data is a huge one.
Yeah. The big deal with data is it's just usually not entered in a timely fashion. That's usually the biggest, in my opinion.
And the ones that look best on paper, usually these academic institutions, big, prestigious ones,
probably at that.
The worst. Like, think about that, okay? If you're a sponsor, you're paying, you're so happy when you got this site to agree.
Yeah, and you're paying them to enter in 3 days.
We got Dr. KOL.
Or 5.
Yeah, we got Dr. KOL so-and-so. They're awesome.
Right.
And they are. They write a lot of peer-reviewed articles.
Sure.
They're thought leaders. But guess what? They don't do any of the work almost at the site. They do safety oversight.
Right.
But as far as data entry, queries, regulatory, they don't even know what's going on.
Right.
They don't know what's going on. And you're the sponsor, and you're paying money, and you're not getting anything in return.
Yep.
What kind of a business is this? You know, it's a good way to go bankrupt. It's a good way to not get your drug approved. I don't think it's a bad idea to have KOLs, but you can't rely on them. And I think relying on a site network in a 2020 and beyond world is the right strategy.
Sure.
I think we were close with the SMO in the 90s. The SMO on paper was like an excellent idea. We're going to standardize, streamline.
Sure.
But really,
if it was all done well.
Really what the SMOs were standardizing was their revenues, and that's it.
Yeah.
So they go in there, they enroll all these patients, they get the money, and then now you have all these queries open, nobody cares, and the PIs
horrible data.
And the PIs have no interest in resolving them because the SMO took all the money.
Right.
We, Site Network, I think is the new and improved SMO.
I would agree.
The sites, here's something we didn't mention. Through our model, Site Network, the sites receive the payments. We don't take anything from it. We get a monthly retainer from the sites, flat fee every month, $12.99.
Yep.
Some have been grandfathered in at $1,000, some at $500 a month. Right?
Yep.
We don't take anything else, so all the incentive still remains with the site to take care of the data entry and all these things. We're not taking home and buying private jets like some of these SMOs did in the 90s.
Yep.
Which is what pissed off the sites. And then the sites pissed off the monitors by saying, hey, we're not even getting paid, forget this study.
Right. And lastly, the sponsors.
So Site Network is like a new and improved SMO in the 2020 and beyond world. If you go to conferences now, you don't see anybody talking about SMOs. The only SMOs you're talking about are people that are ignorant of what's going on in the industry.
Right.
Everything's about site networks.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to get a site network. There's different ways to do it. I think our model's best with the flat fee, letting the sites take all the profits, letting the sites run themselves. You call one of us, you sponsor, call one of us when there's an issue, and we'll put pressure on the sites to do whatever you need to do, or they're out of the network.
And a lot of these site networks, though, are still SMOs, right?
Yes.
Not all true site networks.
So just because they say, here's a free tip for the biotech people, when you go to Bio or DIA or what's the other one? Scope, ACRP, and you're going to meet all these site networks. Ask them their business model. Are you the payee for these studies?
Right.
Okay, because that's dead giveaway that it's more of an SMO disguised as a site network.
Yep.
We are not the payee. I wish we were. we're not the pain.
No, we don't wish we were.
We don't wish either, because in the short run it will be good, just
Right.
like for the SMOs.
Right.
In the long run it would be bad and ruin our business.
Yep.
Okay, so each site in our network, it's its own LLC. We have no involvement in it. If we do, we own part of the LLC ourselves personally.
Right.
But for most of our 50
Few and far
sites,
between of those.
few and far between. For most of our 50 sites, maybe 5 of them we have equity in.
Right.
Right? And even those are separate LLCs. We have partners. It's not just us.
And we're very minority owners.
So revenues go to the sites. That means translation for the sponsors. Incentives go to the sites to do a good job.
Right.
If there's issues with recruitment, with retention, with quality, with anything, you call us. We fix it because we need our site network reputation to be good.
Yep.
Anything else?
No,
As we wrap
I
up?
think we hit on everything.
Give them your email in case the biotech's listening right now.
Chris, CHRIS, at brktHRU.org. So short for breakthrough.
And I will put all the contacts in the show notes and on YouTube and on LinkedIn. And we'll do a webinar on this in February 2020. The end of February 2020, we'll do a webinar on this because it's that important.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody, and catch you all later.